Welcome to the What's Up Already podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host Mattson.
Stuff tap. Better red than dead.
Alec Purchase. Marvin, I love it. Well played, sir. Well played. Yeah, we are here live to talk about the Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. We'll start, as always, with the Rings of Power. But first, thanks for joining us. Go ahead and hit the like, follow, subscribe, bell notification button so you keep up all of our episodes, all of our lives, things like that. With lives, go check us out on Facebook too. That way you can keep up with all the announcements with live episodes, things of that nature. But yeah, we appreciate you tuning in. Gonna give a quick shout out though. After a long conversation, Mattson may not, or none of us may want to ever shout out Charles ever again. But yeah, shout out to our patron Charles, or JJ Screaming Goats. He got his quarterly review request put in the other day. Mattson, you're muted, bud.
Charles, I was just calling you AKA Satan's left butt cheek, so
you have no idea, sir. You have no idea based on what he requested. So we're gonna have to talk about it.
Basically, if you want to torture us, check out our Patreon and learn how.
Yeah, it's something. He also picked the since he's the only one right now. We had a series of, we had 3 movies we're definitely doing for October, so he got to pick the last 2 based on a handful of movies I gave him. So I'm going to tell these guys what those are. Alec, it's not as bad as you might think. So
all right,
I mean, you're not going to love one of them at all,
obviously,
but one of them's not as bad. So it could have been really bad, but he spared you. Because I gave
Charles.
I gave him all the chances in the world to really make it ugly, but
it's your fault.
Nah, but he chose to spare you. Yeah, it should be interesting. So with that, let's talk about Rings of Power. There's a lot to unpack here. A lot happened in this episode. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
I want to learn to ride a horse like Galadriel and be able to have the balance where a spear and arrows being shot at me, and I can just dip down. No big deal. I need that kind of gymnastic work in my life.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Hard enough.
Too much effort.
Hard enough for me to properly grab something out of my fridge.
That's fair. I mean, I've almost fallen out of my chair a couple of times, so I can't even imagine riding a horse. Scary. Those things go fast.
Can we first talk about how this started, this episode?
Yeah.
With them bringing down the freaking tower.
Yeah.
Like, that was an insane sequence, and Arondir just keeps on getting better and better.
Yeah.
Like, holy smokes.
I was surprised at how many of the humans and orcs actually survived that, to be honest. Like, because they were locked in there, so they did pretty well to survive. I mean, I realized that it wasn't that big of a tower once you were in there, but it was a lot of rock coming down on them. So,
oh yeah, huge
tough bastards.
Hey, Adar wasn't worried about it. Just stared that right in the face.
Yeah,
well, he's the bad guy. You can't
throw back to Lord of the Rings 3 with that orc that they were hurdling the things from the Gondor Tower, and he just does a little step to the left or right or whatever. I was like, my man.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny. Yeah, Alec had some good TikToks out of this episode, like the whole freaking beefcakes thing. That was funny.
Yeah.
There was some
5-layer
orcs.
beefy burritos from Taco Bell.
No kidding. It was surprising how big some of them were.
Well, that was what thought about it, because like, these are supposed to be orcs. They're supposed to be impy dimpy little shrimps, and this dude's like 8 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, he was only one, so I figured it was that they were looking for that shock factor about having this big old tough orc.
Dude's been toning, building all those caves, and just yeah,
that guy's beefy.
Yeah. Dude was big old orc. Though I did find it interesting, and we'll just jump right into some lore there that I'm sure some people are really salty about, because it's a deep cut 50-50 split on the origins of orcs, or as we hear in this particular episode, the Uruk, that they were created from the elves being tortured. That's a deep cut that I've always followed because it came from a series of it came from a book that was written by the man himself, Tolkien, but he also had some literature that like contradicted that fact. So a lot of people are iffy on whether or not, but as involved as the Tolkien estate has been rumored to be with this series, I think we kind of got some information that some people probably didn't want to have at that point.
I did like that whole reveal, though.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't a huge fan of, oh, yeah, we're called Uruks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I didn't care either. Because
Sure.
the entire conversation leading up to it was dope. Where he's like, yeah, I killed Sauron. I was like,
Yeah.
Because pretty much the entire Second Age, that's what Sauron does. He just dies over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But Adar at least seems to think that he's gone for good. At least gone enough to move into his old house. And
So
redecorate
that's why
it.
he wanted the mace sword thing, so he could just have it and no one else would screw with his plan. But then he wanted to create the volcano, so you're saying he could move in there because he killed Sauron and he was just going to take his throne, basically.
Pretty much, because Sauron picked Mordor because he got 3 mountain ranges, right? So it's extremely defensible. And then if you have Mount Doom, who's erupting repeatedly, you have ash in the sky blocking out the sun, and the orcs need the shade.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
In that conversation between the two of them, Galadriel kept mentioning his children. Are we talking about how they make orcs? I just wanted some clarification there in the lore. Because you guys understand, especially Alec understands this better than I do.
Well, when a mommy orc and a daddy orc love each other, Mattson, very, very much.
Yes.
That was good. That was good. I like
Are there lady orcs?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't see them, though, because they're too busy making babies.
But again, like, orcs are created, though, like through dark magic or something. I'm still fuzzing this detail.
So is Tolkien.
Yeah, So how do I explain this? There was, and I don't even remember which book it was that he talked about. But there was a book that Tolkien wrote that was like it wasn't any of his major unfinished books. It was more like what was it? It was like an appendices like the Lord of the Rings has, but it wasn't a Lord of the Rings appendices. It was the annals of something, and I don't remember, but it was just another set of notes that they turned into a published book at some point. And what it was is in that particular book, he wrote in these notes that there was elves that were tortured. They were taken by Morgoth and they were tortured to the point that they were taken control of. Their darker nature was brought forth, and they were enslaved. And at the time, it was Melkor. Morgoth was Melkor, which they can't use that in this series, but same guy, just a different version of him. And so he tortured them, and then the first orc were created. And it was done in order, like Melkor did it in order to like mock the Eldar, to just say, haha, look what I can do to your people, because he was a dick. And that's what he did. Now, again, the problem was there was other writings that he did that contradicted that. It never outright said that they weren't tortured orcs, but it was hinted that they were created in a very different way. So Anyway, just depends on which camp you're in. But it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like one of those. Each fandom of nerds has their sides that they'll take. Like, and that's one of those places where there was some split in the fandom of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, and yeah, I've always appreciated. I like the idea of a dark elf and the elves that were turned into orcs. I like how they played this in the show to where he wasn't full orc. Like he even held on to some of like the elven traditions, like the whole seed thing at the beginning of this episode. I thought was very interesting because you can see that he wasn't completely bereft of who he was before he became an Uruk. So I liked that. I really appreciated that they gave him that. Whereas most orcs, they're just orcs. But it was also an interesting concept when you're having that conversation. It kind of gives the orcs a little more humanity for lack of better term, but like they're at least you're more sympathetic to him because what he's trying to do is give him a home, right? At least trying to give him somewhere to be versus they're just this vile group of creatures that just destroy everything. So I thought that was an interesting take, giving that side of the orcs.
Frustrating for Galadriel as well, as we saw. She could not come to grasp with the fact that he wasn't just evil incarnate.
Yeah.
And he had great arguments.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's what you look for in a villain, a compelling reason to lead the cause. And I mean, that dialogue was gold. And I'm glad he's not dead because I was like, oh man, like no, like don't take him from us. I was happy to see that there's more to be played out here.
Yeah, should be interesting. I'm curious. I guess for me, the one thing that stuck out with this is that whole conversation where Adar thinks he killed, and maybe he did, at least that version or that body of Sauron in order to save the orcs up in the far north. And he did so in order, and with that, it makes the stranger seem more like he could be Sauron reborn because we don't know how that looks, right? We know that he comes back, as did Morgoth most of the time, but we don't know what that process is. We don't know. We just know that when he gets killed once he bleeds his soul into the ring, when he's forging the one ring, he can survive. His soul can survive as long as the ring's there, but he can't, without the ring, he can't put himself back in a physical form. Whereas that hasn't happened yet. So he can put himself back in a physical form. So are we seeing the intro to the stranger being Sauron's shapeshifter form? I don't know. It puts more question marks on the stranger for me. I was pretty convinced he was a wizard or a Maiar of some sort. And now I'm like, based on that conversation, the timing, the with the whole prophecy thing, it would make more sense to me now if he's actually Sauron.
Could be. There was that whole thing though in an earlier episode where he talks about the comet landing and he kind of hinted at Sauron. If he killed Sauron, what was the point of that? Like
True.
that would be my question is, he seems, unless he was feeding Galadriel a ton of horse shit.
Fair. I mean, which is possible. I mean, it's not like these people were ever like completely honest, right? So, I mean, Sauron could be somewhere chilling as Anatar and Adar could be working for him. It's not like he couldn't be a good liar, right? The only thing that triggers me to believe his story was when the humans were like pledging to Sauron, and that face he made to the old man before he made him kill a bunch of people. That didn't look like the face of someone that looked like a pretty true, I don't like this Sauron guy that you keep trying to say I work for. So that's why I kind of believe Adar does think that he killed Sauron.
Yeah, it's just weird because you think that he would know about Maya and their eternity, for lack of a better word, being one of the Eldar.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something in there that either he truly believes that Sauron is not coming back,
yeah,
or he's feeding people a line for some other reason. I don't know what it is, but
So I gotta pull this out because this whole Maya thing in people, they're like eternal and everything. So in Lord of the Rings, when Sauron's in the tower with the eye, but the ring's destroyed, does that like finally take him out? Like all Horcrux versions of Sauron are gone? Is that how that works?
yeah, because when he makes the rings, he pours, like JJ was saying, his essence into it. Further down the line, when Numenor sinks, he loses his body, and he loses his what's called the fair form, his ability to shapeshift. So he's tied to the ring now, and that's his
okay.
only...
That's the thing that's keeping him in the round. Okay.
So he tied his life force to it.
Yeah.
So when like Gandalf, when I like read the books and when we thought he died, he didn't die. He came back as another kind of like version of himself, but this one happened to be like what I thought was more, well, not even what I thought, more powerful for sure.
Yeah.
He got sent back because his job wasn't done.
Yeah.
And he was the only one who was actually doing his job, so he sent him back.
Yeah.
Great lesson in corporate America right there.
Yeah.
You got more work now because you're the only one doing your job. Here you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that clarification. The other part of that conversation at the end when Halbrand came in, and obviously Adar clearly did something to him that he doesn't remember, and then he asked, "Who are you?" And Halbrand paused, but then walked away. We didn't obviously get an answer to that. What speculation do you all have there?
So that's the other half. Yeah, that's the other half of, if it's not the stranger, again, I could stick to Halbrand being a shape-shifted form of Sauron, because it would make sense.
Oh, I guess, yeah, the emotion there.
The animosity towards Adar, because Adar gutted the dude, right? So he tried to kill him as Sauron. So the tie-in there, or it's just a legitimate, this story is what it is, and Halbrand had a woman, because that really, you could tell it triggered him. But was he playing? I mean, look, Sauron he's a sneaky fucker, or guy, so you can like really catch on that he could be playing that part because Adar gave it to him, right? Like,
well, so Halbrand he doesn't seem completely truthful or believable. Like, I feel like there's some shadiness there that they keep kind of leaning into a little bit. I don't know. That's just the vibe I get.
Oh, he's definitely shady.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's man of the South. Men of the South, like the Southron men they're known for not being good. So unless because one thing that Alec and I had a quick text about it that Alec brought up that I was like, that's interesting, because now the South it's Mordor. I mean, you
got to move.
Yeah, you're not staying there.
Mm-hmm.
So you move north far enough and you run into, he could be part of the Rohirrim. And I was saying, I didn't think so at first, but then I thought he handled the horse pretty well. He fought on the horse really well. So that's their thing in Rohan. So he could be, maybe he becomes the founder of Rohan, maybe, in which case they're also kind of shady from time to time. So it's, it would make sense, but I think there's a lot of options for him right now. I think I'm still clinging with him to the obvious, and that is there's enough darkness in that dude that he could, and he was very proud to be king there at that point, right? Like, he liked that these people were huzzahing the shit out of him. And so it wouldn't shock me if he gets if he's the Witch King.
The Witch King. I still think that's a good lead candidate.
Yeah. It would make sense. Him or Theo, one of the two. Because now Theo is, while he's not necessarily of a royal descent, his mom has now become like
a legend. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his phrase, he said, like, he misses the power, feels guilty. I mean, that triggered warning bells off in my head. I'm like, that he literally is talking like he held the ring of power. And in a way, he basically held a form of it, just not in a ring.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could see Theo becoming the Witch King as well. I think that's one of the things that I'm so impressed with this show about is there is so many shows that take something like this format, right? Well-known content, and like even the Star Wars content that we've seen up to this point, they take the obvious things and they lean into the obvious for the fan service. And I appreciate that as a fan. But I like this show because they haven't full on leaned into any of the obvious things. And I think that's really impressive because I think our natural tendency would be to let's do it, let's make this person this, and let's make it obvious and give it away. So the fact that they're slow playing the shit out of this show and who's who, they're giving you some major characters, but there's some major characters that we should be seeing or we're expecting to see that we haven't seen yet. And I think that takes a massive amount of patience, and that's really cool that it keeps me guessing. And the fact that I can ask these questions, I love it.
Oh yeah, they don't tell you anything.
Yeah.
I'm still holding out that Halbrand is the King of the Dead in Return of the King.
I would
King
like
of the Dead
that.
has a spear. Halbrand uses a spear.
Yeah. I like that.
But I'm okay with him being anything, which is like you don't get that in the show.
No,
I'm okay with Witch King. I'm okay with King of the Dead. As long as he gets to be somebody, I'd be kind of upset.
Well, I think that's the exciting thing. There's so many things we know that will come to be, and we don't even know all the players in this yet. And so that's why I still go back to I'm glad that Adder is not dead, because I really like his character, and especially after that conversation, really am intrigued by his motivations, and I wanted to see more of that continue. And that's honestly the thing I'm happy about the most is I hope we get to see more.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think that's
anything
one of the
that
best
can
things.
prolong Sauron or whatever else, and I would love to have him take us through season 1, if not in the season. If he has to die at the end of season 1, that's fine. But if we can go into season 2 with that and keep building, like that's to me always the making of a good show. Can you give me a compelling villain that I care about, that drives in? Because all the good characters, like I like Galadriel, but man, I'm really intrigued by the other side of things and the motivations and all these covert. You just know a lot of these people have to go bad, like Theo, for instance, or Halloran or whatever. And I think that's what I'm already really excited about, when we know we're going to have multiple seasons of the demise of some of these people and how that happens, and then the rise of Sauron. There's just so many budding possibilities. And this is only, what episode is this? The 4th one? The 5th?
6.
Oh, 6. Jeez, look at that. And
we only got 2 left.
Oh, that makes me sad when you have 2 left, and there's so... Yeah, I just got sad.
Yeah. I'm actually okay with it because as you're talking about that, like I would love for it to end with Adar still having the capability of there being a possible showdown with Sauron. Like if he's telling the truth and he actually fought him and killed the physical form he was in at that time, like I'd be seriously intrigued to see now we have him coming back, and how's that going to play out for Adar and the orcs, right? Like do the orcs turn on this father figure that they've adopted? Do we have an orc on orc battle? Because that should be interesting, right? Like I think they've set up some very interesting things that I didn't expect them to set up, which is impressive. And I'm very impressed with what they're doing with this show. We talked a lot of shit, Alec and I, in the first 3 episodes.
Well, yeah, because they didn't let me know what was going on. As soon as you told me that there is no timeline, I was all in.
Yeah, but since then it's been really, really intriguing, really good. So I'm happy with what
the show's awesome. I'm all in.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and I was not expecting good old Mount Doom to make an appearance in episode 6, right? Like we just watched the creation, and what a dope way to do it. You just you open a dam, and everybody thinks you're digging tunnels to attack the town.
Mm-hmm.
No, dude, we're making pathways to get water to a freaking an underground volcano that hasn't erupted for who knows how long.
How do they know where to put that? They got orcs that are engineers out here wearing little engineering hats and performing equations. I mean, I didn't know they were that smart.
I'm sure Sauron knew about it, like going up, because that's how you have that map, right? That's laid out. He knew where Mordor was going to be for a good long time.
Fair.
And so that had to have been part of it, was understanding the fact that Mount Doom could be Mount Doom, right? So,
all right.
No, I just love that.
It works.
Let's create so much steam that we create a volcanic explosion. It was so dope. I loved it. Everybody's in the middle of thinking we just won. No.
So not knowing that was going to be Mount Doom when it was happening, I was like, waking up Sauron. But I was like, he just said he killed him. I was like, what's happening here? Right when it went off, I was like, oh, I should have seen this coming.
Yeah, I was completely when he put the sword in, when the old man put that sword in, I was like, what's he doing? Like, what is this key? And then all of a sudden it just opened the dam, and I'm like, what's that gonna do? I mean, so you're just gonna flood the south? Like, I don't.
So was
And
Sauron just
yeah.
waiting to do that? Like he died before he could do it, but he set up everything to do it. That's, I mean, clearly what it seems like. But he was just waiting for the right time. But then he was killed.
I don't know that Sauron would have done it that way. Like, he's got enough magical abilities, and should have at least some contact with some Balrog that would be able to create some help there with some magical properties, things of that nature. So I don't know that that would have been his intention to light up the volcano that way, but certainly he knew what Mordor, what the Southland could be based on. That was always his choice. But I mean, it was always Morgoth's choice to be in the South as well. Like, they all were pretty well determined to be down south. So
Yeah, I don't know if it was Sauron's play because he kept going north and north and north and north.
true.
And then Adar got tired of going north and went south.
Yeah.
Better weather, better defense position, not as many elves. It's perfect.
It's true.
So I don't know if Sauron was even involved with this. Maybe just a opportunity that Adar took.
Yeah.
He's gonna be happy later.
Oh, obviously.
I mean, that would be an interesting twist, right? That, like, it's talked so much about how Sauron created Mordor, but at the same time, what if he didn't?
Yeah,
You know
the
what I mean?
winners
He
write
just-
the history books. So
Yeah. So he just kind of took it
Told everybody.
over, right? And I think that's an interesting twist.
and then he just told everybody he created it.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's going to question him?
Yeah, I mean, nobody's gonna ask it. How'd you do it? Shut up.
The last thing I want to say is I hate her name Bronwyn, but Bronwyn, however you say, when you can take an arrow close to the heart and you can live to tell the tale and be an OG and lose a ton of blood, like, I was like, you know what? I'll respect the name now.
Yeah, I like her though. I like Bronwyn. She's a tough cookie. I like the old man that took an arrow in the back. That was kind of sad. I was like, yeah, you guys got played, but it is what it is. So one thing I was thinking as they were riding these horses in from the river and like their full freaking gallop, I'm like, you just told me on the ship it's a day's ride once you hit the river once you park it on the river. You're going to kill those horses before they get to the south. Like,
hey, they're Numenor
Jesus.
horses. They're special.
Man, I did find it interesting that, like, Galadriel, like, powered up her horse mid-run. I was like,
it was a throwback to the first Lord of the Rings with, I'm going to figure the elf's name.
Arwen.
Yeah, she did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did also like that Elendil could talk to his horse like Aragorn could. So they gave that little Easter egg in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, okay. I like that. That was cool.
That stuff lasted even down into the Rangers. Love it. All right, well, there it is. Anything else we need to talk about? It was a good episode.
That was really good.
Looking forward to more.
Yeah.
Not looking forward to next week as much because I think we're going to spend a lot of time with the Harfoots.
Probably.
And I'm so excited at where we're at right now that I don't think I could wait another week for the season finale.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You're a very fair point.
I mean,
I like the Harfoots. I
do too.
enjoy their storyline, but after they leave me on a cliffhanger like that, if we don't get any more from it, I'll be a little bit peeved.
Well, based on the trailer, we have to at least, because there's that shot of Galadriel standing up and the sky's like orange and she's covered in
she realizes she's fired.
Yeah, so she's covered in like soot and ash. So I mean, I think we'll at least see some of the aftermath, but I don't think you can have another self-contained episode of just down south. I think there's too much going on with two episodes
have to hang
left.
out with JJ's little people.
Dude, I love the Harfoots. I think they're fun. Nori cracks me up, dude. Like, yeah, I like the Harfoots. I'm excited. But that night, I'm really intrigued by the Stranger. So,
You would make a very good Hobbit, JJ. What are the ones that the Southville, whatever, and like the ones
Sackville
Sac?
Bagginsons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sackville
you'd
Baggins.
be a good little like cursing Hobbit, JJ. Just be one of those ornery little effers.
Dude, I'd be sitting in the freaking Green Dragon just drinking my ass off, like, or whatever the hell that pub was that they end up in. It's down in the Shire.
JJ, a little salty little Hobbit.
I would be too. All right, well there it is. Mattson, tell everybody where they can find us.
Yeah, as you heard us talk about at the beginning, check us out on What's Our Verdict at Patreon. 3 different tiers. You can be like our super listener Charles here and help us see what movies we want to review. You can watch exclusive trailers for movies that are coming out that we're doing as well. And then you can also recommend you can tell us what movie you want us to watch, and we will just do it, which is not always fun, but very much appreciated. Beyond that, check us out on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram for social media, especially TikTok. Alex doing some great things. Got a lot of Rings of Power content up there right now. You all seem to be gobbling that up. And then you can listen to us wherever good podcasts are found. Apple, Spotify, search What's Our Verdict Reviews. And our website is under a deconstruction and getting a facelift. We're excited for that to come out here shortly. And again, just appreciate y'all listening.
Awesome. Thanks, Mattson. Yeah, appreciate it. As always, we'll be back here in a moment to finish up and talk about House of the Dragon. So stick with us. Be patient. We'll be back in a few seconds. But yeah, thank you. We'll catch you on the next one.
What? But not really.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!